Now, I know you're probably familiar with 1985's Return of the Living Dead, classic horror comedy from the 80s, but did you know that it was adapted from a very different 1978 novel by John Russo, who co-wrote 1968's Night of the Living Dead with the legendary director George A. Romero? Well, I read this one earlier this week. I picked it up from a book exchange a lot of years ago. I just never got around to reading it until now for some reason. And I have to say it is quite different, very different, but familiar at the same time, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Hopefully as the video goes on, it will start to make a bit more sense. So it begins 10 years after the vanquishing of the zombie hordes from Night of the Living Dead that we're all so familiar with. And that's right, in John Russo's zombie universe, Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead and everything that came after never really happened. Which in my opinion, I'd personally be just fine with in the case of Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead especially. But anyway, it begins with a funeral where we see or read about the guest of honour, the recently departed, getting a metal spike hammered through their forehead with a wooden mallet. And this isn't widespread behaviour in this world that John Russo has written for us. It's just a kind of local superstition and ritual that's kind of become the convention for this community after the 1968 outbreak that we saw in Night of the Living Dead. And who can really blame them? Somehow the dead start returning to life again, of course, and what we have isn't anything like the Return of the Living Dead movie or even like George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead. It really is almost a bleak, nihilistic reimagining of Night of the Living Dead, if I have to compare it to anyone. I hate to use that word, reimagining, because usually it just translates as some hack filmmaker ripped something off without any real understanding of it or anything like that, and it's usually a term of pretension. But in this case, it does feel like a fair description of the Return of the Living Dead novel. So this novel does feel everything that John Russo probably put in Night of the Living Dead before George Romero reined it all in and tightened up the script and so on and so forth for the 1968 movie. It really is like Night of the Living Dead on steroids, I guess you'd say, and nothing like the Return of the Living Dead movie. It's set in a rural location. There's a deserted farmhouse. I mean, there's a number of chapters that are television and radio exposition, just like the 1968 movie. And of course, it does also share the bleak, nihilistic ending. But there's also a kind of nastiness running through the whole thing, courtesy of a roving gang that we're introduced to. So these guys aren't like the fun-loving, cream pie-hurling bikers of Dawn of the Dead by any measure, or even the punk rockers that we all remember from the 1985 movie. They're kind of more like Krug and his mates from Last House on the Left, if I had to compare them to anyone. So all in all, this novel has absolutely nothing in common, not even the most rudimentary decaying connective tissue with Dan O'Bannon's screenplay, or what eventually became the 1985 movie Return of the Living Dead. So this novel's basically been forgotten over the years, I'm guessing because of the fondness that we fans have for the movie. It's kind of vanished into the ether of the world of horror. And kind of understandable. I mean, it's just confusing, I guess, if you look at it all in the context of the movie, and it doesn't really fit in with the lore of the 1985 movie or even the feel of it. A lot darker, a lot more nihilistic, none of the comic relief. Really, it does feel more like the sequel to Night of the Living Dead that never was, at least if you ask John Russo. I mean, there's even a cameo by posse leader Sheriff McClelland and a reference to the Venus probe. We had both of those in 1968's Night of the Living Dead. So if you do read it, it's best enjoyed as an oddity and a look at what Night of the Living Dead might have been if John Russo had taken full control of things. Now, being so forgotten, so obscure, so lost, you might think it'd be pretty hard to track down a copy of this one, and I assumed that it'd be the case after I read it. But I did a bit of Googling, showing my age there, and I found an in-print copy on Amazon, and I even found an audio book on all those places like Spotify and Audible that you can check out. So you can check this one out quite easily. So as I said, it's nothing like the 1985 movie at all, but it is everything like the 1968 movie, and I think that sums it up. So it's an interesting look at what might have been with Night of the Living Dead if John Russo had been in charge of the direction of the script. So if you're after a break from doom scrolling on the phone and you want to escape into a good book, a good post-apocalyptic zombie book, you really could do a lot worse than this one. So thanks for joining me for this look at the 1978 novelisation of Return of the Living Dead that really turned out nothing like the 1985 Return of the Living Dead, for better or worse. I'm happy that both exist in their alternate universes. Both are worthy of existing, both are worthy of checking out, and I do hope that you'll check out the John Russo Return of the Living Dead novel. It is on Amazon and Spotify and Audible and all those regular sources, regular places. And it is a cool little curiosity for fans of both the George A. Romero Dead trilogy and for fans of Return of the Living Dead to see what little influence there is on the movie from this novel. I'm pretty happy with the movie the way it turned out, but I'm also pretty happy with this novel, which is a win-win. So definitely one to check out if you're after a good book, after an escape from the doom scrolling of the world, and an escape from the real-life apocalyptic rhetoric and into the cool fictional apocalyptic rhetoric of the Return of the Living Dead novelisation by John Russo. And ironically, that it isn't less nihilistic than most of the current news coverage, so a good one to take a quick break with. So thanks for joining me for this review. I hope you enjoyed this review of the novelisation of Return of the Living Dead by John Russo. As I said, available on all your Audible streaming platforms and things like that, as well as the novelisation in online bookstores, maybe even thrift stores if you're really lucky. And if you did enjoy this video, help a brother out. Please like, share and subscribe. And hopefully I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Take it easy.